Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Sonar Q3 office hours. Appreciate the fact that we're a little bit late in the quarter to be having this event, but October was just chock full of trade shows and site visits and opportunities for us to elevate the platform. So I do want to get this party started this afternoon with our CTO, Steve Shillingsburg, and I'm going to ask him to join us on stage. And he's just going to be here for a few minutes talking about our platform and the future of site reliability and all those good things. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Georgette. Steve Shillingsburg, CTO here at Sonar. Appreciate for everybody taking the time today. I've been with Sonar for just under 2 years, and I can confidently say we are a different company, a better company. We aren't perfect, and we have a lot of more work to do. I want to make it clear as to how much we value our partnerships with our customers. And we are here to partner with you and walk alongside with you, if not ahead of you. I want to spend just a few minutes talking about where we're headed. As I said, we're not perfect, but we have not been complacent, and we won't ever be. We are continuing to invest in the product and platform. Earlier this year, we increased our product and engineering budget, which allowed us to expand team capacity and invest in our platform. So infrastructure improvements, tech debt reduction, bug and feature backlog reduction, accelerating feature development. As you can imagine, we had successes, we had failures, and we certainly didn't get as much done as we had planned. Always tend to try to bite off a little bit more than we can chew. But we did make a lot of progress. We made significant progress in a number of areas this year. And I'm happy to say we will not be slowing down in 2026. This isn't speculative. Our budget and our headcount are increasing again next year, which I'm super excited about. And we've already started hiring folks and the whole process around that. So very exciting news there. So what are we focusing on with that investment? 2 strategic priorities, pretty simple. The first is platform reliability and performance. We're going to continue the infrastructure work we started this year. Includes workload scheduling, data access, end-to-end responsiveness, among others. This is not everything. And we have several projects that have been in progress this year that we are in the process of closing out. We're expecting to complete these projects as we finish out the year. And we have several others that are teed up and ready to go. Looking forward to getting those started as well. The goal is a platform that you consistently rely upon, full stop. So the second is closing key feature gaps. With increased capacity, we're also accelerating the roadmap items that remove friction, improve workflows, expand what customers can accomplish natively in Sonar. All of this work is focused on one outcome, a platform that is built for the growth of our customers. We're entering 2026 with resources, more clarity, and a tighter set of priorities. Appreciate you joining today and really looking forward to the remainder of this year in 2026.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope my dogs didn't make too big of a ruckus in the background. You'd think I'd figure this out after 10 years of virtual phone calls, right? Virtual calls. Appreciate the time. And guys, I didn't mention when we started, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop that into the chat. I'm monitoring that along with our behind the scenes staff. And we will try and answer all the questions live if possible or before the end of the call. But Steve, I know you've got a ton on your plate, and I'm going to go ahead and let you hit the bricks. And I'm going to call in my cohort in crime, Rick Seemann, to join us. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Guys, Q3 was absolutely chock full with new capabilities, new features, and opportunities to expand our platform. Not just the things that Steve is talking about, but things that you guys have asked us to integrate into the platform, launch into the platform to help you all grow bigger, stronger, faster. And I always love chatting with Rick. Rick and I could probably talk all day long, and in some cases we talk off and on all day long.
We do.
So we've got a little agenda that we want to go through. If you haven't watched the video for our Q3 features, fantastic. But we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive on today's specific call. And A to Z, let's go ahead and kick off with the AdTran MCP integration.
We're going to do this in alphabetical order?
No, we're not. That just happened to be at the top of the list.
No, that totally works. And I have to agree, in your intro there, we're late. And I still have the feeling like here we are again. Q3 was a whirlwind, and I think it really shows in the stuff that we have to talk about. There's some really meaty improvements here. Some of it are, like net new things like AdTran. Some of it is more just about, streamlining processes and deepening concepts that were already in place. But I think we've got a really nice variety of things to go through, and happy to spend a little bit of time taking that layer deeper than, what we can fit into those very tightly edited, 2, 3, 4 minute videos that we send out. So AdTran, MCP, Mosaic Cloud Platform. Not to draw simple parallels, but I think one thing that might help anyone that happens to have a familiarity with our Calix SMX integration in terms of kind of the nuts and bolts of what is this thing and why does it exist? There's a lot of parallels there, but having said that, there are obviously nuances between the two platforms. And as a partner integrating into these things, we're not just kind of doing things the Sonar way. We work very closely with our integration partners to make sure that we are showcasing the best of both worlds. And that was absolutely the case here with AdTran. They have a phenomenal product team and integrations team, and we worked, in lockstep with them to bring this to market. So we're really happy with where we landed with it. We also, in terms of the norms and the precedents of maybe how some other integrations work with Sonar, we really leaned deep into things like establishing defaults. And I think that goes a long way in terms of just minimizing the necessary workflows in order to make things work. So if you have, kind of a configuration norm, and you may need to buck from it every now and again, but we've given kind of more opportunity to define that norm within Sonar and have us kind of push that out as the default. So that's I think something to really look for in that integration. Obviously, it takes care of the meat and potatoes, which is allowing your records in Sonar to automate your service provisioning in the MCP. So obviously, that's driven through records that either are account records or records that are relevant to the account. So do you have a service on the account that is relevant to that platform? Do you have an inventory item that is relevant to that platform? And then do you have the necessary records on that account? Once you have those things established, it's a set it and forget it moment, right? Everything that happens in Sonar is going to drive the necessary changes in MCP. So if an account goes delinquent, it will follow whatever you've configured as the delinquency profile. If the account goes from platinum service to gold service, or gold service to platinum service, we're going to push those changes automatically. And we're going to be informed, bringing information back into MCP. So things like alarms or device statistics are going to be available, of course, natively in Sonar, which is critical to make sure that you're streamlining what your operational workflows look like. And then finally, there is a very handy deep link in there that allows you to jump in to MCP from Sonar, just a single click, where you really need to roll up your sleeves and get into the the nitty gritty of the platform. So those kind of swivel chair workflows are much nearer than they would be otherwise without the integration as well.
There's a lot to that integration, and I think it's always important to call out that the documentation for everything we're talking about, when we roll out a feature, we roll out additional assets to help you, enable you guys to decide if you want to purchase this, if you want to not purchase it, if you want to light it up, if you want to investigate it, if you want to reach out to your AdTran representative for more information, or your client relations manager for more information. But you can always go to docs.sonar.expert outside of the instance, or you can also access that from the resource center within the instance itself. So feel free to check out that documentation, and let's move on to the next feature that rolled out for Q3, which would be on-prem NetFlow.
Yes. So for those that have been following along, we did have a previous approach to NetFlow in Sonar that this replaced. And, we obviously are a cloud-first company. Cloud has its place. This was a case where I think it was really just sort of proven in practice that cloud has its positives and it has its negatives. And for those of you that are familiar with NetFlow, basically it's just a protocol. It's a streaming protocol and allows you to track your network usage information. And it was being leveraged largely in Sonar for it could be either one or two things. It could be informational, so just knowing what your volumes of utilization are on your clients and your equipment. That can be useful. But secondarily, and I think where this really kind of helps put some money in your pocket, is you can sell usage-based billing services if you have this kind of information streaming into your billing platform. So I would say that's kind of the most common case where people are going to want to leverage that and plug in NetFlow. So where I think that this isn't a great fit for a receiving these NetFlows in the cloud is just the nature of how these flows work. So it is, like I said, it's a streaming protocol, and the traffic is UDP. So UDP traffic, if there's an issue with delivery, whether there's just something between A and B, or the receiver is overwhelmed, or there's latency, or whatever the case may be, if it's not delivered, it's not delivered. It's lost in the mail forever. And if you're planning on selling, overages or top-ups or packages based on usage, every UDP packet that's not delivered is, money that is being left on the table. So you want accuracy when it comes to this stuff. So the solution here was quite simple. We have come up with a solution that we offer the package. It's basically on GitHub. You can download it for free, and we allow you to right size the hardware and come up with whatever you want to use. We do have some guidelines, again, in our knowledge base article that explains kind of the minimums or how you think about sizing the different specifications of that box. But I think most important thing is, assuming that you have enough horsepower on the box to handle the size of your network and the volume of the flows, is where that box is being placed. And that's where the magic of this solution happens. So this is being placed on your local network. So the routers or devices that are generating these NetFlow streams are going to be so much closer to the receiver. So, just by virtue of that, you're really controlling your environment, and you're going to have a lot more accuracy of delivery. Also, like I said, you can choose the specifications and make upgrades as necessary. So no matter how much network volume you have the direct ability to influence the performance. And I think that is, of course, very important in terms of scalability. And then finally, that gets the flows to the box on your network, but Sonar, of course, does not live on your network. So of course, we are still communicating from that server to the cloud and to Sonar. But the difference is, like I said, where that stream was UDP, we are, of course, not using UDP to communicate from that server to ourselves in the cloud. We are using TCP, and we are, kind of batching periodic updates that get, broadcast up to Sonar land. So the practical benefit there is you're going to receive those flows more reliably on the receiver, and then the delivery of that from the receiver to Sonar proper is of no concern because of the nature of that traffic and the way that we're batching it up. So really, it addresses all of the different points of potential failure that were sometimes experienced with that cloud-based approach. And again, at the end of the day, that cloud-based approach, was free. This is free. Obviously, you do have to supply the hardware, but it puts you in the driver's seat of making sure you've got the right deployment there, and we've done the hard part in terms of mapping it all together.
I know that's exciting news, and we're seeing several more of our customers light up the NetFlow on-prem as they read through the documentation and decide that it's the solution that they want to deploy. So thanks so much for that background.
For sure.
Continuing on with services, dual data services is something that we launched. And I know you and I have talked a lot about redundancy and how our customers charge for redundancy services and why you would want to do that. So now you can do that in V2. So let's talk a little bit about dual data services.
Now you can do that. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that it's really kind of broadened what is possible on a real fundamental level. One of those truths, absolute truths of Sonar up until this point was it was a one-to-one relationship between an account and a data service. And that was just the way that it is. Obviously, you could have a child account or you could do other things. But at the end of the day, actual data services as defined in Sonar, which is an important thing, right? Because down to FCC reporting, or the additional information that comes with the
Mhm.
data service versus just a recurring service gets leveraged for different integrations, whether LTE, radius, what have you, right? So it's important that you're representing your services accurately. But if you had a scenario in the real world where you were selling and delivering two unique data services to a single account or a single location, Sonar didn't offer a way to bill that, in that way. And we hate the term workaround, but if you were, your arm was twisted, maybe you would, arbitrarily create a child account or something like that. That is not an optimal scenario, and really that's kind of what we're solving for here, because there are many legitimate and beneficial real world reasons why you may want to sell or need to sell unique services. Some examples off the top of my head, I think the most obvious one would be redundancy. Right? Maybe you've got whether it's a fiber primary, and it's something that it's a high availability customer, so you want to have a backup. So you've got some kind of wireless link, whether it's a point-to-point or a point-to-multipoint. It's there in the ready. Maybe you even are selling some kind of automatic failover box that has dual WANs and takes care of all of the magic. I know there's many customers that were delivering that kind of thing, but to build it in that way, it wasn't possible. And now it is. So that's kind of like the most obvious reason. But I think there's other things that maybe are less obvious. Like sometimes in work from home scenarios, if it's a really sensitive data that you're working with, sometimes the employer will mandate a literal secondary internet connection be brought into the home, like total diversity right from the provider. And maybe that's the same provider that's bringing it in. Again, you'd have to fudge the records before to make that happen, like a child account or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's this one goes into the basement, this one goes into the upstairs. If that's the case, and they're both into the same single family dwelling, it's not unit 1, unit 2, it's just 1, 2, 3 Main Street. So again, we can furnish the ability to do that now, which is very exciting.
Keep it all clean.
Got it.
So maybe we are in alphabetical order. I'm just kidding. But the next up on our list is something that is absolutely near and dear to my heart, because as most people know, we use Sonar internally as well. And direct messages from the Sonar instance has been a big ask for customers for years. People don't want to have to open a ticket each and every time they communicate with their customer, or maybe a mass message. They just want to be able to target a handful of customers. 1, 2, 3, copy paste, let's go. So tell me a little bit more about direct messages and how you can leverage that within an account folio.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the ones I was thinking about when I was saying, kind of enhancing and deepening concepts that we already had. So like you mentioned with ticketing, for example, in the real world, what's a ticket? I mean, it's an aggregation of information, but then, like from your customer's perspective, it's an email, really, mostly, right? And sometimes you just want to send your customer an email. And if you're all in on using Sonar for messaging, your subscriber base, which I would highly advocate for, you will have experienced this where you just want to tap out a quick message, get an email out to the customer, but you do want to do it through Sonar. And the only way to do that prior to this enhancement was creating a ticket, kind of arbitrarily creating a ticket. And it's not even so much the fact that you're creating a ticket, but it's just there's multiple steps. You got to give it a category. You got to, there's a ticket is more than just an email, but you just want it to be an email. So this, from the email perspective, because this was introduced to benefit both SMS and email for outbound from the account. But starting with email, what you see in the way that this works when you initiate this workflow from an account is it's much closer to like your Gmail or your Outlook or whatever than what would be resembling a ticket. It's like, what email message is this coming from? What email message from the contact on an account is it going to? What would you like your subject to say? What is the body? Are there any attachments? Send. That is a much more desirable workflow when you're just trying to tap a message out to your customers. So I think that's the best way to explain how this was implemented for email. And then SMS is definitely different. Anyone who's using our outbound SMS knows that it is more tightly controlled. There are templates that are defined, whether that be through our triggered messages or through the mass messages. And you can leverage both of those to send messages out through SMS, which can be very beneficial. Obviously, it's all about meeting the customer where they are. And sometimes, whether it's certain customers or just certain information, it's just better delivered through an SMS message to the customer's smartphone, right? So this gives the ability, like I said, anywhere that is currently any of the messages and templates and ways that SMS can currently be leveraged today, those are now you're able to send those directly from the account. So you kind of have that library of messages, and you can send that out and initiate that. So if it was, for whatever reason, if it was missed or the customer claims they didn't get it and you want to resend it or whatever, you now have kind of an at your fingertips workflow to do that right from the account in question.
Yeah, and we're already getting great feedback from customers on being able to leverage that tool for sure.
Very excited to bring that forward. Yeah.
Well, we are just clipping on down the feature sets, and I'm going to let you go first, because then I'm going to tee up. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that I think is closely tied to this new feature, which is called disconnect reasons.
Sure, absolutely. This is a good example of customers were solving for this before. It's not that this wasn't
custom fields.
Possible.
They were using custom fields, and they were using pick lists, and it was doable, but it was not clean. Not consistent sometimes even.
Custom fields are very powerful, and they can bridge a lot of gaps. But I think that one of the downsides with using custom fields for things that are truly foundational to the operator experience is that they're a custom entity, right? You have to kind of remember to populate them, and if you want to report on them, you have to kind of bring them in a certain way, and you kind of have to know what you're doing. And because they're custom, they're not necessarily showcased in the user interface or embedded into workflows in the same way that a dedicated field would be. So this is a classic example of something that, yes, it was being solved for, and I'd say in most cases probably through custom fields, maybe through account notes, maybe a little bit, but it deserves to have its own field. As much as an operator, we all wish that we would sign all the customers up and they would never leave us. We would never disconnect the account. Unfortunately, that is not emblematic of what happens in the real world. So in the real world, when a customer does sadly leave you, which hopefully is less often than when they're joining you, you need to understand why. You got to capture that information. And I think that is like a lightning in a bottle opportunity. Sometimes you have one conversation with the customer, and a lot of the time, they're not necessarily interested in having a big conversation with you. So, Sonar needs to be able to accurately capture this information, and once it's captured, and make sure that it's captured, showcase it in meaningful ways. So that's what this allows to do. Now, this does have a little bit of setup. Out of the box, it's not going to be a required field, but personally, I would advocate strongly that you do implement it in a way that it's a required field. And that goes back to my previous point. If you have that one conversation with the customer, you're going to want to make sure that you're capturing that information. So when you're disconnecting an account and you have that requirement configured, you can't complete that workflow without capturing this information. And the information that you bring in, you had mentioned consistency before, Georgette. Mm-hmm. This is built in a way where it's going to imbue that consistency into the process. This is not just a string field that your CSR or your agent can just fill out something. So, today it's, went to competitor X, and tomorrow it's signed up with competitor X, or whatever the case may be. That data is not going to show cleanly in the report because each one is slightly different. We have this configurable as a list in the settings where you can decide as an organization what are all the different reasons that you may want to log. If you want to list out all your competitors, or if you want to say just went to a competitor, you can be as specific or as non-specific as you want to be with this. But bottom line, you're controlling what that is. And then once the agent is going and making a selection, you're going to get consistency every time. And then the magic is, as you collect that information, not only is it going to be logged against the account and showcased when you go into the account, so you can understand what happened when you disconnected a customer, why their journey with your ISP ended. But you've got some bigger picture opportunities here, and that is into the reporting, where you can see what your trends are, and you can, both with standard reports or incorporating this new field into your custom reports, you can really start to analyze trends and detect trends and really understand what's going on. And I feel like I accidentally created the perfect segue into what you were so excited to talk about here with Sonar Retain.
It is absolutely the perfect segue to talk about Sonar Retain and our partnership with QC. QC is doing a fantastic job providing insights into not just the call scoring for a customer, but we have been able to build out a model where Sonar Retain that is powered by QC actually goes down into AI customer level insights for every customer on your Sonar platform. Sonar Retain syncs data both ways and builds a complete customer profile. And that includes your customer experience insights, churn risk analysis, and other metrics that might be available through your reporting module. Your agents aren't going to need to get into multiple different apps to see the full picture in terms of your retention for these customers. QC is a standalone platform currently scores only calls. Sonar Retain scores both the customer calls and the customers themselves. And it integrates with other systems like Perceive to provide the site level intelligence. I love that it's using some adaptive churn risk models that learn from location specific patterns and even your historical customer behavior. We would love to see you guys experience the real-time updates after every interaction so that you can have the ability to flag retention risks, identify potential upsell opportunities with your existing customer base, automate retention activities, what you're doing to prevent churn or maybe even bounce backs from churn, and even sales reporting. And all of those things are possible through Sonar Retain. And I actually have a really kind of exciting announcement that I may be putting the cart before the horse, but we have this fall opportunity with our contract with QC that if you sign up for this feature before the end of the year, there will be no integration fees on Sonar side or on the QC side. Nice. So if you sign up for Retain before December 31st, 2025, you will not have any integration fees. But wait, there's more. We've secured a number of slots for the next several weeks for people who want to do a 14-day test drive for free. You have to sign off on some waivers and things like that. But if you want to see the power of Retain in action with your live customer data, please reach out to your client relations manager and we will get the ball rolling on letting you see the power of what this tool can do for your company, reducing the risk of churn. Upselling opportunities. These are powerful numbers. I watch our customer numbers. There may be a little bleed here, a little bleed there, but a little bleed over month over month over month. By the end of the year, your churn numbers are continuing to go up, and we want to partner with you guys to stop that hemorrhage and turn it around so that we're all seeing growth going the other direction.
That's fantastic. What a great opportunity.
I think it's a win-win-win across the board. Absolutely. So reach out to your client relations manager. You can reach out to me directly and I'll get you to the right person. But 2 wins. 1, for the end of the year, no implementation fees. And 2, we've got a limited number of 14-day trials. We can't do everybody next week, but I can do 5 to 6 every week for the next 6 or 7 weeks and get people to test drive the tool.
That's awesome. Yeah. For those that take advantage of that, I think that gets me excited because not only it's powerful. Just the generic demo, it really illustrates what we're talking about here and how powerful this can be. But getting to see it with your own data is a whole other level of illustrative, and I think it really does help to just you don't have to fill in any blanks. You really truly understand. You're going to see that there was an opportunity there, and I think there's what I love about their solution and the way that this has all been implemented and integrated into Sonar is it has value right out of the box. It's intelligent right out of the box. Things like sentiment analysis, it doesn't need your fine tuning on to know what words or tone or whatever contributes towards a customer that is not feeling the love. And those are things that'll come out in the analysis right off the hop. But at the same time, if you take the time to work with the onboarding steps to define your organization's unique standard operating procedures. That's where, things kind of go from, amazing to incredible, because you might have things that are super specific to your business. Right? It could be something as, kind of, I want to use the word frivolous, but it's not. But, something as sort of innocuous as like, I want to have consistent greetings. When they pick up, and they can score on that. And it's, you can define what those things are, but it can also be things like if you have promotions and you want to make sure that those are mentioned, again, those can be defined, those can come, those can go. And, there's the ability for it to both be, kind of self-learning and kind of take that aggregate AI approach of just knowing what is and what isn't. But then you can take that next level of fine tuning and you can really define what makes your organization, and it can defend and it can showcase the opportunities where those opportunities are being taken, and as well when they are not.
And that is the beauty of AI. It's only going to get better. It's only going to learn more. It's only going to see your company for what your company is and where you want it to be. And let's face it, in these days of overbuilding, being able to retain your customers, it costs you less to hold on to a customer than it does to go out and get a new customer.
Oh yeah.
Not just in construction costs, just in general marketing and that cost of acquisition are hard dollar costs for your organization. So I really see the Sonar Retain partnership as being a fantastic tool for our customers and is only available through Sonar for the next 6 months. So I'm very excited to have that opportunity with you guys.
Awesome. Well, that's great.
All right. So next on our list, task improvements. And, task templates is one of those things that I think is far underutilized in Sonar. I every month come across a customer that thought task templates only related to jobs. They didn't realize you could put a task template on a ticket. They didn't know you could assign individual tasks. They didn't know you could create ad hoc tasks. So that basic functionality is already there, but now we've got some next level opportunities with these tasks. And I'd love for you to share what those pieces are.
Absolutely. So this is another one of those where, tasks have existed. They exist on many entities that you can have, you get a lot of value out of tasks. I know that they are very heavily utilized in our user base. So that's great, but that doesn't mean that there's not kind of a deeper layer of opportunity there. And the two main improvements that we did off the top of my head tie back to a new concept for task groups, and as well a way to kind of view your tasks. So I'll start with the task groups. Prior to this enhancement, tasks could be assigned, they could be unassigned. So anyone, could kind of complete one, which there's a time and a place for that. But, having a task assigned really does, solidify that it's going to get done. There's ownership behind that. So I think that's, a good thing to focus on. But in the real world, maybe it's not an individual that's going to complete it, or maybe more accurately, when the task is being originally assigned, you don't know which individual is going to complete it. And I think what was happening before this enhancement is that if you didn't know definitively which user was going to be completing that task, it would then sort of be born unassigned. And it may not get completed because there isn't that ownership there. So task groups definitely take on that challenge head on and allows you to define a group of users. I would say generally it's going to align to your departments, that sort of thing, but there could be different squads within your teams. And you can assign it to that group. And we have a new user interface where you can go and see, what tasks are assigned directly to you and to a group that you belong to. And if it's a group that you belong to, within that, there's a workflow that you can take ownership of the task. So it's not just that, you're aware that, you're part of the billing group and someone has to do it, and then you go and do it. But, you can take that intermediary step to say, I'm going to take that one. So you claim that essentially, it then goes from the group to you, and then your group members will see that change, and you're not going to have the potential of multiple people working on that task at the same time, which is kind of the opposite problem of nobody doing the task.
I almost feel like it's like similar to claiming an alert on network side of the house. You're claiming that task. You're saying, right. I'm it. I got it.
Yep, or a ticket coming into a group or anything like that. It's a it's a parallel concept, and there's a reason why that workflow exists. It's just for clarity within your organization. So that's task groups in a nutshell. I think obviously what I described, it takes a little bit of setup. So make sure you define your groups and train your teams on kind of this opportunity. This is within the the kind of my user area. If you go to your kind of avatar, your initials in the upper right hand corner, that's where you can see this. Also in there, some people don't know this or don't go in there very often. You can also see your tickets, jobs. There's different things that kind of tie back to your specific user in there. But of course, the tasks are in there too. And then introducing a generalized tasks area was something.
And you can also have a custom report sent to your inbox once a day if you want to.
Sure.
For tasks that are
Like
assigned.
a daily digest.
If you want a little daily digest of things that are maybe in an overdue state, that's also a functionality that, or as a manager, you want to see only overdue tasks for the members on your team.
Your whole team.
So it's not just that the feature is there, you've got reporting reliability as well.
Yep, that's a very good point. So definitely take advantage of that. And one of the things about tasks that can be or has proven in the past to be challenging, if you know what your task is and where it's assigned, it's all good. But if you can't remember maybe what entity it was assigned to or what have you, but you had to do it, that can be a challenge too. And obviously, if it's assigned to you, yes, you have that area in the My Things user interface. But we now have a generalized table where you can go and see all of the tasks, period. And I think that's very useful in conjunction with filters and sorting. If you are trying to take a global view of your task situation, you can see, and again, an audit every now and again is not a bad idea. You could do it through a report, or you could go do it live, filter down. Oh, well, here's all your overdue stuff, or here's all the incomplete stuff, or here's all the stuff with support, or whatever the case may be. Here's all the stuff on this class of entities. So, I think that is a very powerful lens or series of lenses that can now be pulled that previously through the user interface there wasn't a way to do that. I mean, you could do it through graphical or something like that if you're feeling savvy. But this is a much better workflow and way to do that, even if it's not something that you're necessarily doing every day.
All right, so every time I say anchor linked, I think back to me trying to convince our VP of sales and marketing that we should wear big chains with an anchor at one of the trade shows for anchor linked billing. I had this whole concept in mind and got shot down. But every time I think about anchor linked, I think about anchors. And
you just didn't have the bling budget, I guess. But
yeah, exactly.
For what it's worth, I think that's gold. No pun intended. Yeah, it's good.
Well, one day I may show up at an event with some big old chain. But we have expanded this capability for anchor linked to include package level support. So let's talk about why that was necessary. What people want to do with that.
For sure. So anchor linked at its purest form is really just a way to manage properties with multiple units, I guess, or multiple dwellings, but they're really kind of part of one association. So apartment buildings, condo buildings, multiple dwelling units, MDUs.
HOAs even.
HOAs, trailer parks. There really are you can kind of sit here and spitball and it's like, oh, what about that? What about that? So a lot of utility in that. And it really is just a mechanism of better organizing your addresses and any sort of logical, kind of hierarchy or association between them. But that's kind of like the table stakes. And that's what unlocks the ability to actually do the magic of anchor length. And to me, that gets into when you're defining things like your service catalogs. So you can define unique service catalogs using the MDU example or a condo building, right? Maybe you've negotiated with the condo building that you are going to sell, one of 3 packages, and every unit gets the basic package included in their HOA fees. But they have the ability to upgrade, and that's how that works. So what's cool about that is you can go in and define against that anchor property to apply to all of the linked units. What I just described in terms of having a unique service catalog, and that is done through the through the billing defaults. And there's great documentation on this. This one definitely has quite a bit of setup. There is quite a bit to learn. So I would implore you to go check out the knowledge base. And this is not an educational session, so I'm going to, slap my own hand from getting too in the weeds here.
Too in the weeds, yeah.
To kind of bring it back, picture the concept of defining that service catalog I was describing. You'd have your basic, your silver, your platinum, or whatever, and you can do really cool things with the billing. So like I said, if the basics included, you're going to charge maybe $50 for each unit to the condo association, but all of that is charged to the condo association. So we have something called a subsidy. And so they will pay for all of that, and the units won't pay for any of it. But maybe they want to pay for the upgrades. So if you want to upgrade to the platinum package, maybe that's $100 a month. So it's $50 to the condo association and $50 to the occupant of that unit. And we take care of all of that billing, and it all shows up on the right invoice. And it's really, really cool, set it and forget it type of thing. So that's all fine and dandy. But up until this enhancement, you could only do that with unique services, just services. So within Sonar, obviously you have services, and then you have packages. Packages are a collection of services. And packages are useful too. And packages are especially useful in the MDU space, where oftentimes you do have to offer like a triple play to be competitive, and you're going to be packaging that up. Well, until this enhancement, you would have had to manually curate those services. And again, the whole
through them onto the account,
is to automate this stuff. So this is really, making that whole concept whole. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. I've got an update to the way our feedback portal looks, feels, acts within the instance, as something that was also changed in Q3. So would love to use that change in the feedback portal to talk about some things that are coming up for Q4. Just a little tease of what's to come.
Yeah, I'd love to. It is going to be a tease, and I'll explain why. We've got a couple of things that are coming right around the corner, and I'm happy to preview those today. But really, I would love for everyone to check out, if you haven't already, that revised feedback portal. Most people are going to be aware that we've had a version of a feedback portal for a long time, and we really do sincerely make good use of it. As the product department, we rely heavily on the feedback that we get, and it's really, really important. What may not be visible from the outside looking in is kind of the trends that we've observed over time. And the way that the old, or the outgoing portal that's now since been replaced, worked is, if you as a user had an idea, you could go into the portal, you could see everyone else's ideas, and you could so if you found one, if someone beat you to the punch, you could go and you could upvote it, or you could add a comment or what have you. Or if your idea didn't seem to be in there, you could add it in. The challenge that we had is, it's kind of stemming from a good thing. We had good engagement on the portal, and over time you end up with a lot of stuff. And the challenge in that was there wasn't a lot of ability to organize these things. And what we were finding was, this is what the numbers showed, the engagement was still good in terms of people visiting the portal, but the more items that were in there, the harder it is to kind of find what you're looking for. So if you have hundreds of other items, and say you have half an hour a week to do this, which I think is generous. Everyone's super busy. If you're spending a half hour a week in there, thank you, first of all. But I would assert that half an hour a week is not enough time to really wrap your head around everything that's in there. So what we were finding was people were still using it, but the votes and the comments and the engagement that we were getting was diminishing over time as compared to how many ideas and things were in there. And that kind of leaves us at a crossroads. We can do one of two things. We can be, kind of get rid of things, but then they don't, that's kind of antithetical to the idea of why we're doing this in the first place. So we were seeking a way of showcasing things, because at the end of the day, we've got a plan, we've got a roadmap, we're working on big things, we're working on little things. And one thing I'll shout out as well, our classical roadmap, I always talk in, I don't know why, I guess in another life I worked in the gravel yard, but I always think it in terms of aggregate, right? The roadmap shows your boulders, and you got your rocks, which are smaller, and you got your stones, and you got your pebbles, right? We're constantly working on all of them, and a roadmap couldn't showcase all of those things. It would just be overwhelming, right? So the challenge is sometimes feedback requests are pebbles, sometimes they're boulders, and you end up with hundreds and hundreds of these ideas. This new solution that we've put out, it allows us to strategically curate what we are making visible, and it's going to be a heck of a lot easier for your half hour, 10 minutes a week that you can spend. You're going to be able to go in there and skim every single item that's in there. So you can, first of all, you can see our roadmap. Our roadmap is still organized in the same way: now, next, on the radar. But there's also an additional section kind of passed on the radar that's like all the things that we would love your feedback on. So as a user of this, it's going to be a little bit different than before, because like I said, when you would submit something, you would see it in there among the other hundreds and hundreds of things. Now it may not be showcased yet. The idea is we're circulating things out, but we're showcasing the stuff that we need feedback on, and that allows us to continue the progress that we're making. And we're already seeing way higher engagement on the kind of a per capita basis. So this shift is definitely working, and it's really great to see. So that's one of the benefits. The other benefit, like I said, comes back to the roadmap. And topically related, we have rolled out just recently a kind of the Q4. We try to refresh it on a quarterly basis, and we've done that kind of in timing with this event here. So even if you went in there last week, if you go in there today and you look at the roadmap portion now, next on the radar, you're going to see a bunch of different stuff, and that's because now we have live the Q4 updates. Before,
including a new lane on that map.
There is a new lane. Yes. And please don't let me forget about that. But one thing I wanted to mention first is that the old roadmap was a static thing. It was an image. It was a PNG, and it was just telling you, hey, this is the stuff that we have. And if we did put the numbers on there, like the feedback numbers, but you would have had to like remember the number, then go into the feedback portal and search for it. Pain in the butt. So now what you do is you just click on it. You're already there. It's an interactive roadmap. So you can click on it. It's not just, however many characters I could fit in the little thing. It is a title, and then it's a description. So you get a much more round understanding of like, what are these things that are on the roadmap? What can I expect to be coming next from Sonar? And to curb a term from you, but wait, there's more.
There's more.
You can vote on it from there. You can comment on it from there. So like, the interactivity is going to be a lot more, at your fingertips. And I think that is a huge win. But thank you for the reminder, because we have added a new swim lane. This goes back, everything always seems to come full circle. Steve started us off today, and he talked about, the journey that we've been on, and, the commitment that we have to improving performance, platform scalability, reliability, response time, all that good stuff. He came to talk about that because we really want to make sure that we're being proactive and like, this is a commitment of ours. We're putting a lot of resources behind it. We're 100% to do that, and we're excited to do it. But that's just kind of it's a pretty broad pledge, and we thought we'd be a little bit more kind of let you in a little bit on what's happening. So we have a new platform upgrades swim lane, just like we have the features and improvements and network and integrations and billing and payments. Now we have the platform upgrades, and you can see in there the types of projects that we have queued up for now, queued up for next, on the radar, etc., to really understand what are the efforts that Sonar is making, and you can follow the progress along. Now these items are a little bit different than like feature requests, because like, we've already decided that we're doing them. We don't really need like feedback on them. Like, if you want to like, comment and say like, yeah, that wouldn't be a bad thing. But it isn't necessary in the same way that like, hey, here's this feature idea, we'd love to hear more about it. But there is still utility in interacting with it. Let's say there's something on there that is like really appealing or important to your business. We will, as these things are being worked on and deployed and completed, there is states that are tied to all these items in the feedback portal. If you show your support on an item, you're essentially following that item, and you will get updates as progress is made. So that is kind of one, again, kind of additional utility to this being an interactive environment rather than, a PNG that we're serving up for you within the application. So I think that kind of touches on the main points of kind of like, what are the changes? Why have we made them? And again, hopefully, it has whet your appetite to see, well, what are the Q4 updates? But I'll give a little taste. We've definitely had an item, kind of coming from the next and then pulled into the now, and is really nearing deployment. So I'm happy to kind of tease it today. We've got some stuff pertaining to ticketing, and yet again, it's this idea of like, our ticketing module is has an incredible amount of traction, really foundational to the Sonar experience, but there's always more that can be done. And actually, there's a lot of parallels to disconnect reason with my first enhancement here, and that is ticket resolution fields. I think a lot of people were accomplishing this in various ways, but this
maybe using tags or ticket tags or
Yep. A lot of different ways you could do it, but bottom line, exactly like disconnect reason, this is a foundational concept, and the data that you collect and the consistency of that data is gold. You need to see your trends. You need to see your insights. You got to wrap your head around it. And we want to help you do that, in a very natural way in the workflows that are native to Sonar and into the ticketing system. So, it works very similarly. You get to define what your resolution fields are, what your codes are, etc. And, you'll collect those with your tickets. We will have the data, we will display the data, we can report on the data, and it's going to be, that's something that I think is going to be really beneficial, in the long run for our customers to have that just better defined and supported by our solution. So that one I think is very exciting in terms of just really, deepening the whole ticketing concept. And, similar in that vein is something that I'm compelled to describe as subcategories. I think that is very illustrative. I know I'm going to get my hand slapped for saying it that way because that isn't technically how it's being implemented. And the reason that we're not doing it that way is it's because of how customers are typically using categories already. Categories already exist, as I'm sure you all know. And if we would have implemented subcategories, it would mean that you'd probably have to move a lot of your data, and I don't think that's the way that that would have been so natural. So what we actually are implementing is category families. So that's kind of like an outer concept. But what it does introduce is this tiered kind of hierarchy of organization around ticket categories. So you can organize that however you want, whatever your family is going to be. If it's the family is it's a hardware issue or a network issue or a problem exists between the a keyboard and the chair issue, or however you want to define that could be your families. And then you can have granularity in your categories underneath that of it was the PoE injector, it was the patch cable, it was the crimped end, it was the ONT, it was whatever. That's up to you. We didn't come up with those lists. You get to define those lists. But the beautiful thing is once you define those lists, you can capture those things reliably against your tickets and start reporting against them and seeing your trends. Maybe you got a bum shipment of patch cables, and it's something that just didn't come out because it's just kind of being solved one by one. You're going to notice that now in your data because it's going to be collected a lot more consistently. So those two things I think are really just going to round out the ticketing concept and help elevate things. And we are definitely committed to what I call kind of our marquee product areas, things like ticketing, things like scheduling. We're continuing to invest in those and improve those. So that it does not represent everything that is planned for ticketing, but just to tease, this is a couple of things that really are kind of around the corner from a release perspective.
I'm so looking forward to all of these enhancements, and I really encourage people to go into the instance, click on the circle with the question mark, go down to the roadmap, take a look, and go to the roadmap and feedback portal functionality and take a look at what it looks like. get your hands dirty.
Please.
Vote on some things. Provide your feedback. Encourage your staff to do so as well. Everybody gets the ability to communicate in there. And I do want to call out that in that feedback portal, when you click on feedback items, that's organized by accounts, billing tools, communications, scheduling. So if you've got a dispatcher that's got some pebbles in their shoe, have them take a look at the things that are currently teed up, provide their input, because operators think about the platform differently on occasion, and we want that information back into the loop so that we're building something that's really going to be useful for you guys.
It's essential, and to really drive it home. Sometimes it can be hard to observe, and really the reality is when you have a tool like this, you're kind of really wearing your heart on your sleeve. We could not possibly release as many things as our hundreds and hundreds of customers can put into the portal, right? So it is going to grow over time, and that's kind of why we made that pivot. But we depend on this feedback. We leverage it heavily. And if you're someone who has invested your time into the feedback portal, I'm sure you have been engaged, where we will target people that are backing certain concepts, and we will send them surveys or previews of concepts or A/B tests that are voluntary to participate in. And we will, say, hey, what are your thoughts here? We have some concepts here. How would you like to see us solve this problem? We are absolutely engaging and kind of, counter engaging any of those submissions that we get. So, just to be very clear, this is, I know sometimes it can be viewed this way. And I think for some companies, it frankly is kind of a black hole. That is not how we use it. And any time that you spend in engaging with it, I promise you it's time well spent.
We always talk when we're doing our little dress rehearsal is what happens if we can't fill the full hour. We always fill the full hour, so I don't know why that topic comes up every time we're going through a dress rehearsal. But we want to thank all of you who joined us live. I want to shout out to those of you who take time to listen to the recording of this information. Please reach out if you have additional questions. Reach out to your client relations manager. If you've got a support-related question, reach out to support. We are happy to help and help you guys use these new features, because we built them with you in mind. We built them because of your requests. We built them because of your feedback. And we want to thank you for that continued partnership, and cannot wait to see what Q4 has in store for us and more.
Hear, hear.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.
Take care.